Good afternoon, Central Florida. As I always like to say, we're back. Welcome to your 3 p.m. weather update here live in the Digital Weather Center, and I'll be your host for the next 15 or so minutes, depending on how much I ramble. Meteorologist David Nazario. I hope everybody out there has been doing okay. We've been dangerously cold for the last, I want to say, 12 to 18 hours, with many of us during the evening yesterday having already dropped well below freezing. It's been a very extended and extensive period that we've spent feeling the worst that this winter season has had to offer so far. I'll say so far. We still have a little stretch to go. We are going to come out of this here very soon. We've got about another 24 hours left of this brutal cold stretch before we get a little warmth back into Central Florida and maybe a touch of rain. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. But first and foremost, can't forget my manners. Thank you so much for joining us over on the News 6 Plus app. And a warm, sending all the warmth I can, a warm welcome to all of you over there on the News 6 WKMG YouTube channel. It's a pleasure, as always, to be here to talk weather with everybody. And with that being said, it's 3 p.m. on your Sunday, February 1st. I don't want to do a shameless plug, but today is my birthday. Turning 32. The feels like temp was 16 this morning out in Haines City. So that was fun. I did a little weather pun there. 32, but feels like 16. Lord knows I wish. Not every day is like that, but it is February 1st, a new day, a new month. Let's get you some headlines. So here we go. This is what we've got out there. It is still dangerously cold. Our high temperatures really didn't do very much today. The sun is shining. We don't really have a cloud in sight. That's how dry it is out there, but the winds and that Arctic air that continues to funnel in at, no kidding, the perfect angle out of the north-northwest is winning the battle here. That sun is not really going to do too much, and as a result, we are going to remain on the frigid side for the next 24 hours with a very cold, freezing start to your Monday morning. And I think that's honestly the kicker here, folks. I want to emphasize that. Today, Sunday, it's kind of, you're left to your own devices. You can still step outside, go off to breakfast, brunch with friends and family. You make it over to church if you can, run some errands. It's all more or less at your leisure, depending on how serious or the nature of your agenda looks. Tomorrow, however, a lot of us have to get out the door no matter what. So you want to make sure you are still tracking those temperatures, tracking the winds, tracking the feels like temps in your local area and where it is you may be going from point A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the rest of the alphabet to include from there, just so you can stay ahead of the storm, ahead of the game here. Not really in a storm, but we are in the brunt of the coldest air, and high pressure will be settling in overhead. So be careful. We want to stay in good health, all of us. And then last but certainly not least, a little bit of a change of pace there. Rain on Thursday, putting a little question mark because we're going to deep dive into that towards the back half of this update, but it does look like we have a decent shot at getting a little bit of rain in before we get that reinforcing pulse of cooler air coming in from up north once again. Now, this is a look at our radar, and what I really want you to pay attention to, because there's not going to be anything out there, no snow, rain, sleet, you name it. Look at the balls on the left-hand side, the little icons, the snowflakes there, south of Gainesville, just to the southwest of Ocala, west of the Villages, on our Gulf Coast counties, all the way down to Bayonet Point and Holiday in West Florida. Those are confirmed storm reports, areas that did pick up some snow yesterday. There was absolutely no accumulation. We didn't have that much going on here in town in Central Florida, but we did have several spots, some of which not included here. We had some stray flurries reported here in the Orlando area, up towards Daytona Beach and easternmost Volusia County. Had some very small specks of snow pop up on radar north of the Orlando and Apopka areas, just as it was coming in with the strongest winds and those colder temps beginning to invade from up north. So we did, in fact, realize a little bit of Central Florida snow. Talk about an abnormal and unprecedented event. And on top of that, with those rockin' crankin' winds, we did have some power outages. We do still have customers out there without power right now up in Alachua County, portions of Flagler, Volusia, Seminole, Orange, Brevard, going back and forth down there in Port St. Lucie County. I know that's not in our DMA. And then Polk County. Still have some intermittent power outages and, believe it or not, some water issues as a result of the freeze yesterday. Now, let's take you full screen, take a look at the water vapor together. You can absolutely see just how much of that cold air is still moving in. If you look very closely, just off the west or east coast of the state of Florida there, you can see those wispy lines. Those are called cloud streets, and they run parallel to the flow of the wind. So they're moving with the wind, and that just goes to show how dense, thick, and how fast that pool of Arctic air just continues to funnel off to the south. And it's very interesting. You can see the dry air nestled in over the peninsula itself. That, believe it or not, is an interaction between the air mass itself above the ground with the actual peninsula of Florida. That's why we're getting that induced dry air. Very neat, the different things that tend to happen with the local weather when you have phenomena like this racing through our neighborhood. Now, as we continue to hammer home the cold, it's been cold, 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 cold. I kind of want to do some fun on social media because that's been the name of the game here in town. We do still have our extreme cold warning in effect. It'll go valid once again by about 7 o'clock tonight, shortly after sunset, and stay with us until 10 a.m. on Monday. That is just after peak rush hour, peak rigmarole of the morning when we all got to get outside and get going, whether it be to the gym, to work, to school, you name it, especially for our car riders, our bus riders. Talking students here. Car riders, I mention that because, dare I say it, sometimes we just don't have access to a vehicle that can really shelter us from the cold weather. Bus riders, if you're out there waiting for the bus, I would honestly encourage, if you don't have a long walk, either stay in your vehicle or take until the very last second to head up to the bus stop and try to do your best to forecast when it is it'll be arriving so you're not sitting out there in the cold weather. And then we do have our walkers and our bike riders out there. If you have the means of being lifted to school, I would definitely take advantage just to be on the safe side. And if you absolutely don't, layer it up. Have fun with the layers. Accessorize and take advantage of this cold blast. I actually have a pea coat on sitting right here next to the desk. This thing still has a receipt in it from, I think, 2017. That's how little I've been wearing it. So take advantage. You know, if you want to accessorize, layer up. Tank top, t-shirt, long sleeve, turtleneck, coat, you name it. That's how you're going to protect yourself from the cold and keep your immune system firing on all cylinders. And on top of that, we do still have a freeze warning. Same valid times will go into effect by 7 p.m. tonight until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Now, here's a look at where we are right now. This is where we stand. You can see not a single one of us have reached 50 degrees today. And in fact, no one's even seeing an upper 40-degree temperature on their thermometer right now. And our fears-like temperatures, let me take myself back onto fears. I don't know if we're all fearing this cold. I would hope not, but the feels like temperature is still close to freezing in some spots. Look at Palm Coast up there with a feels like temp of 34. They've almost not come out of that feeling like it's frozen outside altogether, and we're now getting past the relatively warmest portion of the day today. A lot of us to the south are also in those upper 30s in terms of the feels like temps. So we really didn't do very much to come out of the freezing conditions that settled in late last night between 8 and 10 p.m. And the temperature change compared to this time yesterday is even colder. And the reason I bring this up, even though those values might not seem very dramatic there, we only managed to make it into the upper 50s yesterday. Because of the clouds and because of the rocking winds that started as early as 1 to 2 p.m. in the afternoon, we really didn't make it to be that warm despite the sun shining and the winds whipping around and all that. Even though prefrontal conditions were still warm, it really wasn't that warm, and we are now even colder. These are the observed high temperatures that we've seen for the day today. And again, we're probably not going to go much higher from here. We're already past the hump. We've turned the corner, and from here on out, it's just going to cool off once again, and it's just a matter of how fast. Here's a look at the forecasted hourly temperatures. By about midnight, once again, 11 p.m. to midnight, we're going to be getting close to that freezing point, and a number of us, albeit not as extreme as Saturday night into this morning, we are still going to spend a period of time below freezing, and I will be updating the county by counties for you all for later on this evening for the 9 o'clock weather update. Some social media updates will be rolling out, and then of course our newscasts at 6:30 and 11:30 consecutively. These are the winds. You can see where that cold air feed is coming from still right out of the northwest. We typically use what we would see on a compass rose, and I would go ahead and say this is about a 320, 330 degree wind direction, which is precisely what you want to get all that polar/Arctic air in from up north all the way down across our area. And when you zoom on down to ground level, you can see a lot of us are still in between 20 to 30 mile an hour wind gusts, which are going to keep those feels like temperatures feeling harsh and somewhat strugglesome out there if you do happen to be out this afternoon. There is some hope on the site, or on the horizon, I should say, as we go through the overnight hours of Monday into the sunrise point. By Monday morning, 8 a.m., 9 p.m., or 9 a.m., 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., we are going to start to see those winds relax some. We've got that Arctic high that's going to be sliding in from the west directly overhead, and you can see as we go through Tuesday early morning, our winds are finally going to calm down altogether. The same with our wind gusts. As we go through the night tonight, we are still going to remain somewhat elevated, but then through the day on Monday, watch how they just fall off. Here we go. Late in the day on Monday, and then they're going to dissipate almost instantly. There you have it. You can start to see them tapering by about Monday, 9 p.m., and that's all thanks to this Arctic high that's slowly going to drag its heels across the Gulf Coast and arrive overhead by very early Tuesday morning. Now, granted, this high pressure will not have the same punch as it did when it first came down, but the key takeaway here is even though that is an Arctic high pressure, it's not going to get any colder, and in fact, it's going to help us and help our case by dropping those wind speeds outside and kind of weakening the pressure gradient, the pressure difference between that nor'easter that's ripping up the East Coast and that high pressure that's settled in over Texas, Louisiana. And then finally, let me go ahead and reset that. I want to take you through our feels like temperatures. So as we go through Monday morning, this is what we're going to be stepping outside to, and this is where we got to be careful. We're going to be down into the low 20s for our northern counties, and then east of I-4. I-4 eastbound, if you live on the east side of that, or to the right of that, if you're looking at the map, that's where we're going to be in the upper 20s, but nevertheless, every one of us is going to be cold tomorrow morning once again, so make sure you are layered up. But the afternoon, looking fairly chilly. Not freezing, but chilly. We're definitely back in business. And if anything, you should have some chili in the afternoon, warm up a little bit, or a nice bowl of soup, because we are going to be in the low 50s in terms of our feel-like temperatures. And into Tuesday, notice we're finally above that freezing mark. And then Tuesday afternoon, as I like to say, we're back. We can finally see 60 degrees returning across the board for many of us. And when you look at the long-range temperature trend here, we are going to try to get as close as we can to average, minus that reinforcing shot that's expected early morning Thursday that could drop us in some rain. This is what that upper-level pattern looks like. There's that deep old trough reaching its way down out of eastern Canada that's providing us with that cold air funnel from directly up north. But then watch as that second wave, there it is right there. You can see it digging down in that blob of red, yellow, extending from the Carolinas back through Texas. That's a short wave, or a smaller feature that's stuck within the big old trough that you can see encompassing eastern Canada and the eastern United States. That's what's going to help to punch in a little bit of extra oomph in the cold temperatures for a little while, and also maybe bring us some rain. But then as we go through the weekend, look at that. We finally start to see this pattern break down. And a nice little rule of thumb is whenever you see really large troughs just really reaching down from Canada all the way down to Florida, and when you see those orange ridges, those orange speed bumps reaching back up to that same area, it's like a it's like a traffic jam on I-4. Traffic's not really going to be moving too fast. Same thing with our weather features. But when things collapse like this, and we get more of that west to east flow at all levels of the atmosphere, it allows traffic to pick up some speed. You go from the red zone to the yellow zone, still a little slow down, but you're picking up speed back to the green, and you're racing full speed back to getting home to home base. And that's exactly where we're going to be picking up on, and we are going to continue to warm through time. And then before we wrap up, here's that glance at the possible rain chances coming in for at least the first few hours of our Thursdays together. And that'll just about do it. Thank you so much for the time that we've spent together today. And you're very welcome to those who are tuning in over on News 6 YouTube channel. I see a few folks in there. Berlinda Mustafa, Randy Man, David, and Jay Ray. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me to talk weather this afternoon. I hope you all are staying warm out there, and I hope as we bounce back, you don't find yourself waking up with the sniffles, or dare I say, the flu bug trying to work its way into your system. I think that's the big thing. We do want to protect our homes and protect our property, but at the same time, we can't do any of the above if we aren't taking care of ourselves and our loved ones first. So remember that. Keep that in your back pocket, supplement, and get those vitamins and minerals in as best as you can, and get some rest. Sunday is usually a day of rest, and I would absolutely take advantage of it. Today is a great day to get up against something warm, sip on something warm, and just stay cuddled up in your bed or on the sofa with friends and family and just ride out the cold spell till it's done. We're almost over. we're almost over. And we're going to continue to provide those updates for you as we go through the day today and through your Monday. We'll be right back to it once again in the trenches alongside of you together, because what's your neighborhood is our neighborhood as well. We'll talk to you again soon, but until next time, this is the Digital Weather Center signing out.